Hello folks, hi again. Well, talking about movies or big monster movies. We know we're talking about young Gary from Korea. Well, now we're talking about this one, Gamera. But we're not talking about any Gamera, we're talking about the first Gamera movie review. After all, in the first Gamera movie, you have this jingle, the Gamera. It is like a very it rings a bell, that Gamera jingle from the first Gamera movie. Even though it came out back in 1965, when one of the coolest cars in the world came out. Thanks to the Ford Motor Company, that car has fame. Even the camera, it was like this. The only start of the movie is the simple details is that a Russian airplane hits Alaska. It is to have a collaboration with American and Canadian troops or scientists or whatever, to try to find out something. Is like they say that this giant turtle is something out of Eskimo myths or something like that, right? It is quite sure a remake of the movie. Could be quite sure. Pretty even about it, like all those people that don't like Godzilla or like they say Gamera. It's very interesting movie. The first Gamera movie, even though this is the US version, it is just a collaboration with the UN to get to get rid of Gamera. I'm not saying they're not gonna destroy him or anything like that, but at the beginning, there's this little kid named Tosho, and then about the Hidakamaru, getting down. There's Tanaka and this hot chick in there. Yeah, that's made in the 60s. Came out 1 year later here in the US. But anyway, this first Gamera movie, pretty amazing, very Gamera's roar, from this first movie. This is in black and white. It's very good detail for a black and white movie, being part of around the 1960s. It was totally a whole different story. People get in their Gamera. After that one, they have them in color. The second Godzilla film, known as Gigantus the Fire Monster, Godzilla rates again. This is Gamera. But the remake of Gamera, it has to be like a little bit, more to the detail, more to the plot of, the same thing is created by a Russian nuclear missile. But the first one that they started in Alaska, that's how Gamera came out. And and then later on you have the movies that Gamera fights with another monster, and that's only the one when Gamera fought Godzilla. It is more than they heard about another. I heard something about some magazine that they're gonna remake Gamera for 2015. So what is it going to be about? The main thing of this movie, or this purpose of this movie, it is about a turtle. But in this Gamera film, Tachi, that he always a turtle. No, he's crazy about turtles. He gave out his pet turtle away. But at the end, he find out that he never thought about Plan Z. What this Plan Z in this movie is to send the giant Gamera into a capsule to planet Mars. Yeah, to planet Mars. It was called Gamera the Invincible, but that's how it is. As what it is to the remake, or what consider it, is that yeah, Warner Brothers had the rights for this new Godzilla film that I might just watch, but in a way, that would be in order for another studio to come up to like for American remake. That this time for Gamera, eventually might be the same plot but a whole different story about some giant turtle attacking Cuba. Is about the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff. The main thing is Miami. There's no hills here in Miami, but could imagine a big monster attacking Miami, Florida. But this is where the remake of Gamera has to come in, right? In a way, that what would happen in this remake is that around the Cuban Missile Crisis, of so like the same Russian missiles in another location. Same thing with the 1998 Godzilla. The 1998 Godzilla looked kind of cheesy, but this one, this Gamera, will be started like, yeah, the 1960s Cuban, 60-something Cuban Missile Crisis. Then a giant turtle attacks Cuba because of a nuclear test, because this turtle has infested and became a giant turtle. Then he goes out to like a flying saucer, even though in the first one he came out like a flying saucer, but in this one he just came out and goes to Key West and ends up in Miami, attacking Miami, Florida. A big turtle attacking Miami, Florida. And then I have a speech that King Kong doesn't do even a thing compared to Gamera or something like that. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. But it might be a MGM released or something. Then you have to have this Warner Brothers and MGM. Warner Brothers is the one that make the new Godzilla. After the 2015 Gamera, there comes to something as a British professor in Florida, studying about turtles and what are the Cuban Missile Crisis. It'll be played by the guy that played James Bond around the early 1980s, the 1970s to the 1980s. Him more being a scientist, but they might say, oh, there's a dinosaur roaming around. Yeah, and this is where we get this thing. Godzilla attacks South Beach, and then he goes after Gamera. It's like what else gonna make after this? After 2015, 2016, it's like this another Godzilla versus Gamera kind of thing. Between Toho, the MGM, Warner Brothers, and probably the company that makes Gamera, but after all, this thing is that you see Godzilla and Gamera fighting each other in South Beach. It's all it is to the sequel to the remake of Gamera, and then with Godzilla versus Gamera, Godzilla goes and appears in South Beach or something. He comes to Miami, but in a way, he does have to destroy Universal Studios. After he comes to Miami, he comes passing by New York, he goes and destroys Universal Studios just to ruin the whole park. Godzilla destroying Orlando, Florida, but attacking Universal Studios because of something. Because remember the MGM Disney? That's kind of related to maybe the company that gonna make the Gamera remake. I just piss off and show, look Universal, take that. It's kind of like, yeah, this is how it is, and this is how the remakes, the Godzilla versus Gamera kind of thing, And let me tell you about this thing. If they make a a new Gamera movie, Gamera Attacks Miami, Florida. But you have a Godzilla versus Gamera, then Godzilla and Gamera fighting over each other in South Beach. You know, that's what it is. You know, if Godzilla comes and faces Gamera in South Beach, I think that will be like like one of the final fights when Godzilla versus Gamera remake comes out. Godzilla fights Gamera in South Beach. You know, that's how it is, because I think if you want to see the first Gamera movie, I bet it's kind of cool, and it's, you know, pretty awesome. You know, they work together, and then one thing of the movie, what they say, the first Gamera movie, they call this guy, there was this and the other guy calling the guy an ignorant ape. That's in the first Gamera movie. You know, it's called Gamera. The first Gamera film was called Gamera the Invincible. And if you ever wanted to hear about the first Godzilla movie, it was titled King of the Monsters, because Godzilla is the king of the monsters. Sooner or later, I might talk about big monster movies and how the big monster genre came along, and then I will say about anything in my next video about the big monster genre, and also about one thing interesting: Godzilla versus the devil. How the heck you gonna have Godzilla versus the devil? You know, I think with Godzilla versus the devil might be Godzilla versus King Ghidorah at the Vatican. That is something to have, very equivalent to have Godzilla versus the devil. But, you know, other than that, enjoy the video. See the Gamera movie. Somebody posted the first Gamera movie called Gamera the Invincible, and everybody has it in YouTube. You could even use the YouTube downloader, and, you know, and any program that works, you could just download it, put it on the DVD, and put it like on the TV to see it in a bigger view, right? You know, that's at least we have a bigger computer screen. But after all, see either with the big monster review, or about Godzilla, or about how Godzilla versus Devil should be, you know. And after all, peace out and goodbye.